Hey guys, Foxdrop here with a video on 5 ways to have a better early game as a jungler. The early game is arguably the most important stage of the game for a jungler, as it's the time when you can apply the most pressure and have the highest individual impact on the game. So if you find yourself being streaky, inconsistent, or just straight up sucking in those early stages of the game, then this video is for you. This is a video being made in partnership with Pro Guides, who by the way have released quite a nifty new service called Genius. What they've done is they've banded together a bunch of high elo players to be at your disposal. So if you ever have a question you want to ask a high elo player, you can do that 24 hours a day. Not bad, eh? The first tip for having a better early game is to have better knowledge of where the enemy jungler is. If you know where the opposing playmaker is headed and what he's doing, you'll be able to make much smarter and more well-informed decisions, which will in turn increase their success. For example, if you see the enemy jungler heading topside for a gank, you can decide to counter his gank and screw him over. Or if you're in a really bad jungle matchup and you want to avoid the enemy jungler like the plague, you can make certain you're never anywhere near him caught with your pants down. The best way to know where the opposing jingle jangler is headed is to have good vision in his jungle. Now your trinkets can be enough for this, as you don't need to ward absolutely everything, just one side. If you've got one side warded and you know he isn't there, you can make an educated guess that he's probably on the other side. Now this is especially effective at level 1 when you can ward his Gromp. If he ain't there, it means he started topside, and if he is there, well then he's there. Good job, you found it. This is also why, if you can get away with it, smiting the enemy wolf camp can be very useful for knowing where the enemy jungler is. For the next point, if you're playing someone who wants to snowball early, specifically on your first clear, start with 3 health potions instead of the refillable potion. Refillable potion is better if you don't need that extra health early and becomes more efficient the more you can use it. But it can leave you pretty starved for health in that very first clear. Now this is pretty rough if you're someone who wants to invade or gank heavily in the very early stages. In most cases, refillable just won't facilitate that for you. This can be especially effective if you're against someone who went refillable while you opted for standard potions. If you invade and trade health bars, you're going to come out on top simply because you can sustain for more and therefore last longer. On top of this, scuttle crabs can give you an extra boost in health should you need them. The suckers not only heal you for a decent amount when you knock them out, but the lifesteal or regen from your jungle item will give you a decent tick of health as well. A third point is one about having better and more specifically more efficient ganks. When you see that a lane has no summoners, you should camp it. This one might sound pretty obvious, but a laner with no flash is pretty much a sitting duck if you can get to him. If you've ever played as a laner, you'll know just how vulnerable you feel when you have your flash down. And there is a reason for this. It's because, well, surprise, surprise, you are pretty bloody vulnerable. As a jungler, you should take advantage of that. And this also includes trying to keep track of the enemy's summoner spells. Keep your eyes peeled on the lanes and ask your laners what's up and what's not. Now Flash has roughly a 5-minute cooldown, so that's a fair window for you to go and get stuff done. Next point, don't try to do too much. Sometimes you'll be a victim of your own narrative, your feelings of what you should be doing and what you have to do, when in reality you can just chill out and take it slow. Trying to force things in situations where you really shouldn't is a very risky strategy. Sometimes you'll get lucky and get something from it, but mostly you just stand to achieve very little while putting yourself behind as a result. Don't be afraid to instead just farm it up and acquire levels. At this rate, you'll at least remain relevant for later on in the game and not fall ridiculously far behind to the extent where you can't get anything done. Now, of course, I'm not saying you should permanently farm and never leave your jungle, but balance is key. A common theme among junglers who often fall behind is a tendency to be trying too hard to do too much. You should be realistic in your self-evaluation of your jungling as well. It is impossible for you to be everywhere helping everyone at every time. It's important to remember as well that as a jungler you don't just exist to take care of your laners, you have to take care of yourself as well. Especially in solo queue as well, if you're putting all of your efforts into helping your teammates get stronger so they can carry at the expense of yourself, then the longer that game goes on, the harder it's going to be for you to have an impact. And of course, we all know that not being able to have good impact in solo queue is a very risky strategy and probably one that isn't going to work in your favor. Before we get on to the last point, I just want to thank you guys for watching the video this far. If you aren't already and you like what you see, please consider subscribing to me here on YouTube and leave your feedback or questions down below in the comments if you have them. But anyway, the last point for having a better early game as a jungler, and to be honest, this point can work for any stage of the game: don't be a slave to your teammates. As the jungler, you're often viewed as the poor water boy whose duty it is to solely supply the laners and enable them. This has some truth, of course, but it can easily get out of hand and work against you. Laners will often ask for and expect too much, not respecting that you have other obligations outside of babysitting their lanes. There are 5 members on your team, and you have to make decisions that will best benefit all of them, not just one individual. Sometimes that requires looking at the bigger picture and not helping the squirming baby who is demanding it. Remember, you gotta look after yourself first before you can look after others too. However, having said this, I personally find that it is actually a good idea to at least give some love to the big crybabies in chat. Not necessarily because it's the best strategical move, but because it's in your best interest to try and stop that person from throwing the game, flaming too hard, going AFK, or whatever it may be. But that's all I got for you for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought down below in the comments, and don't forget to leave that cheeky thumbs up if you did like it. Thank you again for Pro Guys to helping me with the editing with this video. You guys know you can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, and catch me streaming over at twitch.tv/Foxdrop. All those links being in the description, of course. Hope to see you there, guys. Most importantly, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.